Hello, I'm StuO. Welcome to the first RS3 graphics stream. I might as well kick off by saying this is the tool that we use. This is Jagged. So we have one of the Zamorakian Generals right here, all been modelled nicely. So the first thing I had to do was rig it up in our tools. Pretty much just creates a lot of rotates, some translates, some scales down all of the controls. So when that happens, pretty much just have this lovely sort of dotted line going across everywhere. So one of the attacks I'm going to work on at the moment is a ranged attack. I can't go into too much detail about how you actually beat it, but we can get a decent sort of idea of what's going to happen. So I've started doing the actual attack. So a lot of this starts with, I've got the idle pose, which is what we usually start with for the attacks, just because for blending's sake. Because we don't have the blending, everything goes either from one animation straight to another, so we need to make it as smooth as possible. So as you can see, nice idle pose. So after this, what I've done, I've started to create a couple of extra keyframes, because what we want to do is get the pure essence of what the animation's going to do. So as I sort of scrub through this, you can see I've got a couple of key poses. So we've started off with the anticipation, and then hopefully it sort of takes off. And what this would do, it will sort of launch the general up into the air and start doing an animation, start doing its ranged attack. So as I can kind of go through this, I'll just turn that off just so we can actually see what's going on. So she sort of goes up into the air, and then he's going to use these spines on her wings, tentacles. They're a bit sort of hybrid-y, but yeah, they are wings, not horns or anything. So they've got a lot of fluidity to them, hence why when I put the skeleton on, they can all move. So if I select all of these rotates, it will go crazy, but I don't want to do that because I'll break it. Okay, so with this, she's going to fire up, going to push across with her arm, and that's going to lead a lot of the motion. So as this progresses, all of these spines will shoot off, and then again with this wing as well. This is going to be quite a long animation, but what I don't want to do is show off all of the repetitive motion. What I'd like to do is continue to put a lot of the keyframes and then also break down a lot of the motion between from here to here. If I go and play it right now, it's going to look crazy, so let's just have a look. Makes no sense whatsoever. So what I will need to do, one thing, all of this is, let's just go backtrack to how the tool works. Each of these things at the bottom is one of our keyframes. And what that means is it's effectively a snapshot of the movement of the character. So as I've moved here, idle obviously, and then this is another snapshot of her sort of anticipating to take off. And then as I'm using this to break down, this is our own in-house tools at the moment. This is called Jagged. This is pretty much what we've had since not day 1, maybe day 20. And it's sort of progressed over time. So you might have seen my Ghost art ones from old school. He's got a much older version of this, but as years have come along, we've sort of improved it. We've got a lot more motion control. So for example, I can grab a bunch of controls and move them at the same time. So this makes it a lot easier to make nice fluid motions, and this is a prime example for these wings as they sort of swing around. I don't know if we saw this in Tales of Gobbles, if anyone's actually watched that one. We've got the wings sort of crawling out of the back, and we really wouldn't have been able to do that beforehand. So yeah, let's just start off. I'll focus on the takeoff for the time being. So I want to get from here to here. What I would like to do is sort of raise her up further into the air. But for simplicity's sake at the moment, I'm just going to keep it quite grounded. And then what I can do is I can move this one up and I can drag everything else onto the timeline higher up into the air. But like I said, I'll just start with this piece. One thing that makes this quite easy, clearer for me, is to color code all the keyframes. So if I just right click here, yeah, I am effective. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat now and then. I am the only animator who's been working on God Wars. I had a little bit of help because with 4 bosses, this one boss is 2 characters. There's another one which is also 2 characters. So 6 NPCs in a short amount of time. It was pretty intense. We've had a lot of sort of skip lunch times and so forth just to try and get it done. So back to what I was going to say. I'm just going to color code some of these keys just because it makes it a lot easier to work it out. So as it goes down, I want to take this off. I think I'm going to play around with the timing for this piece because at the moment it's 20 frames and our engine works at 50 frames per second, so it's going to be so immediate we have no idea what's going on. So what I'll do is I'll increase the size of these keyframes just so what it does, it will transition from one pose that I've created to another pose. It will sort of do it in a linear way. So as I sort of increase this, I'll move these to some nice even numbers just so it's easier to break down over time. And then this one will be a little bit quicker, as what I want to do is want to sort of do a nice anticipation and then shoot her up into the air a lot faster. So as I can do this, I've got my 4 keys, and what I will do is I'll break this one down. So what I can do is select 2 keyframes and then create an exact one in the middle. And what that will do is it will pretty much work out half the way through. So as I've put that as 8 keys, I'm just going to set that down to 4, set this one down to 4. So I'm just going to check the chat for a minute just in case I'm not missing anything. The interpolation, if you want to know any technical details, it's kind of, we don't deal with degrees and everything. It's more, so a 90-degree angle is technically 1024 units. So we kind of have to deal with that, and then we still have the whole 3-axis where everything's rotating in the X, Y and Z. So with the rotate widget you can sort of see it a little bit more. I also have a graph editor, and what this does, I can sort of wiggle certain angles in a single axis. So as I rotate, as I grab this one a little bit more, you can kind of see it's going to tuck in a little bit more. So let's just create this. Also, because of these wings, I want to add a little bit of overlap. So as these are moving from this key to this key, I'm just going to sort of fold them in. This piece is just going to rotate out a little bit more and add a little bit of drag onto the wing. So as it sort of goes down, it's going to sort of like snake a little piece. So you can kind of see there, it's breaking it down ever so slightly. One other thing that I want to do is, with here you can see as you sort of move down, the feet sort of go through the floor, and that's because everything is purely translated and rotated. we don't have any like special tools like in animation tools like Maya and Max. You've got IK, which pretty much what that does, it can anchor the foot to the floor. So when you move the hips down, everything else is calculated. So I wouldn't have to actually animate any of the knee bends. So unfortunately, we don't have that sort of technology. So what I do a lot of the time is I focus very heavily on the actual hips, because if I do all of the foot motion first and then find the hips are out, then it means I'll have to sort of readjust all the legs again. So if I'm just going to rotate this down, oops, a bit far. No, that should be okay. So I can just rotate the leg, sort of readjust it to fit on the floor. And I'll just scrub back and forth, just make sure it's actually anchored. See, that should be okay. I'll have to do the next to this leg, because you can kind of see this leg is pretty much straightforward onto, oops. It's much more facing forward, however this one's at an angle. So as you see with the widget, it's kind of, the x-axis is facing directly forward, the z is directly to the side and so forth. However, what I can do is I can adjust the orientation of the widget, so that gives me a little bit more control over being able to rotate at an angle without doing one and then going into another angle, and then it will break the leg, because obviously your knee only goes in one way. Normally what this kind of animation, in terms of length, it takes, we've got a list of how long we should technically be spending on animations. Obviously it varies, because if it's just a human, it's, you know, 2 legs, 2 arms, spine, the cape. It takes about, we try and say about 4 to 5 hours to do a walk, and then it sort of varies from there. So if we've got a quadruped, we've got a 4-legged creature, for example, you saw the Seren boss, 4 legs. It's a lot harder to do, because then you've got to sort of anchor all 4 feet onto the floor. So we try and say maybe 5, possibly 6 hours to do a good walk for that kind of thing. Also, stuff that takes into account is this one in particular, it's got all the wings, so that adds a lot of extra time to sort of go into that, because the way some people will animate is pretty much just do all of the basic stuff and then go back onto the wings, and then pretty much do it key by key, just trying to sort of add the correct motion on there. So yeah, this attack, I'm trying to keep myself to about 6-7 hours, but because it's quite a long animation, I'm going to have to go over that time. But thankfully, we've managed to keep in time pretty well for this. The way we plan everything is the designers tell us about what they have in mind. We can sort of rein them in a little bit, because we know all the technological sort of limitations, or we know, oh no, we can do that, and they're often really surprised. One good example of that was for the Halloween minigame. People just presumed that we couldn't do boats. I was like, yeah, should be able to do that. So yeah, that's how we've managed to get boats into the game for Halloween, but no promises for anything else. That's not my department. Yeah, so again, this is going to be about, I think it's going to be about a 10-second anim. Not going to do all of that at this point. Most complicated model I've ever worked on. Ooh, that's a good question. I would say, it's going to sound really bizarre, but I think the Yakimaru was quite awkward, because it is just a snake. So that means that I've got to add a lot of secondary motion into it all, because it wasn't just one big tube. You also had the 5 tentacles and then this extra piece at the back. That was pretty awkward. And then on top of that, we have a lot of squashing and stretching. So if you look closely, the whole tube sort of ripples as it goes along, and that can take quite a lot of time. So yeah, just because some models are kind of basic looking doesn't mean they're not complex, like animation wise. But on the flip side, we have got spiders. They're really awkward. I worked on the Cowfight King and all the Cowfight reworks, and they're like 6 legs. And when they're really small, it's really difficult because you've got to take the stride distance into account, because everything pretty much moves at 2 set speeds. So as one leg goes forward, that's fine, but then you've got the middle leg, and because the stride distance is so awkward, you kind of get the legs colliding with the other legs, and it gets really like fiddly. But they worked out quite well in the end. But all of that sort of problems takes into account when you do much smaller animals, because they really have to run. But when you compare that to a human, the human's just walking at that speed and they're nice and casual. And then on the flip side with that, you have the huge ones like, what's his name? I've forgotten. Virago. He's massive, and we put him at run speed and he's casually walking along. It gets really, really weird. Some of the favourite stuff I've been doing, I think, is possibly some of this. I quite enjoy the gobies because it's quite a nice change from working on raids, really intense combat stuff, and then you have gobies. They're happy, they're silly. You can be as mean if you want, which I am. So it was a nice breath of fresh air, really, when we're doing a lot of combat stuff. I mean, the watch is pretty much, we're really up on our combat. So yeah, I'll just continue working on all of this. So as I'm going along, oh yeah, the leg. So I'm just checking the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything else, because there's some good questions coming in. Yeah, gobies was me, making them fall on over. I don't know, I thought it'd be funny, and it was. Everyone says it's cruel, but you know. I don't know, they're just these kind of nice innocent creatures that just have it coming. So, right, now I have the leg pretty much planted. No, I don't. It's just off a little bit. There's no physics or anything in the game. Pretty much all the cape motion, all of any sort of explosions where you've got debris and everything falling down, that's all done by hand. It does take an awful lot of time, but we've managed to get it done. Unfortunately, yeah, we don't have access to stuff like Maya and 3ds Max for animation stuff. Unfortunately, it's just the limitations that we've got to do, because the game's been about for 15 years now. The whole under the hood stuff is kind of, I don't know, it goes over my head at the moment, but we're sort of trying to work on seeing if we can get those sort of tools integrated, because I mean it will speed up the workflow. I mean, you've seen how long it takes just to ground some legs, so even if we get stuff like IK, it really helps. But yeah, we do have the physics in particles, but it's so different to what everything else works. So I don't think we're ever going to really add physics, because the other thing, physics is quite intensive processor-wise, and that works absolutely fine in single-player games, but bear in mind, you can have hundreds of people on screen at any one time. If everyone's got capes, it really eats into it, and I think would take a massive hit, especially when we're trying to cater to as many computers as possible. Yeah, it's not really something that we're going to sort of focus on. I mean, the number one things we want to try and get is we're trying to get the industry tools going, just to sort of speed up workflows. Yeah, in terms of like making them go below the ground, it's like we can kind of do that. It's fine. I mean, that is a good idea to do a crater. The only problem is when you've got this is effectively my ground plane. I can just put on the nice grid system for us, because this is pretty much just a reference grid, but we do have the floor. So pretty much nice. If she goes through the floor and we put a crater there, it won't work because the crater would then be under the ground and you won't see it. So to an extent, I need to like raise it all up. Also, I've got to kind of do this to some extent, otherwise it feels really floaty. It's a bit strange. So as I kind of go onto this, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this little piece here. So that was 5. I'm going to play around with the timing a little bit. So instead of having a 5, and it would pretty much be like, you know, a 2 and a 3, I'm just going to play around with it a little bit more. And what that does sort of creates a bit more of a proper snap to the animation when she just flies up into the air. So as it goes up, yeah, every finger is animated. What we kind of do, it helps us sort of gesticulate a little bit in the hands, but often because it's so small, we don't necessarily do every single thing unless it's really, really relevant. For example, you probably noticed the players have got this kind of thing going on, like a weird sort of Spock mitten thing. We didn't want to do every single finger. One, poly count is like integral. We really need to keep it down. Again, with controls, joints, it gets very intensive. But what we want, because you just used to have like these weird little meat, we used to call them meat clubs. So we ended up sticking a thumb, an index finger, and then the rest. And we found that's quite expressive. So we've got the points. You can kind of do thumbs up. It kind of helps just if we ever had any sort of closer up things, we can just sort of overlap one finger, just so it sort of adds a little bit extra secondary motion. But NXT will contribute. It won't directly affect us because NXT is effectively a really, really powerful sort of renderer if you compare it to Java. So it means what we're going to have is a lot better sort of rendering, better draw distance, but it's not really going to specifically fix anything that I'm going to do for now anyway. Hopefully we can use all of this fact that will be out of Java, we can then use other things. Jagged is kind of used for a couple of things. So the first thing, animation. Second thing is models. Some of the modelers now use 3ds Max and a couple of other like tools to help create it, because there's a lot more support, there's a lot more flexibility by using other tools. So, but that doesn't mean that we don't necessarily use Max specifically. I mean, I've got Max on my computer, but I don't use it as much, because sometimes what we always have is we've got some old models, and what I tend to do with like effects, sort of get them in from other areas of the game, other quests. Like say I wanted a nice explosion, but explosion would be particles, which is great because I can just reuse those. I can tweak them. But say I wanted a crater, for example, I can bring in a crater from another project and just put that in, just stick on the any extra things that I want. For example, yeah, crater, big like meteor, something like that, all goes down. Yeah, and then I can combine that all and then bring it straight into Jagged, and that seems to work quite well for what I do. But for characters, they primarily use 3ds Max. So I'm just gonna have a drink because I don't talk this much normally. In terms of animating with polygon-based models or texture-based models, they're kind of the same for me, because at the end of the day, the models that are textured are still they're still polygons. It works exactly the same sort of way for me. I quite like the new direction of the textures. So you've got a lot more stuff with this. So if I just stick on the poly view, you can kind of see that you get a load of detail. If we had to do all this in polys, it's really awkward, because that's sort of the way all of these polys work, is they sort of all deform. So as you can kind of see, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see my fingers. Yeah, so you can kind of see this try, for example, is it's deforming quite nicely, because it is effectively just one try. But if you took into account all of this detail had to be modelled in, it's really awkward, because then it gets it's solid and we can't deform it as well. Again, another thing that we have limitations wise in Jagged is the fact that everything is like, it's I don't know how to explain it. It's, without going really technically, I'll just say it technically and then someone might be able to. So it's all kind of rigid bound. So one vert is influenced 100% by this joint. There's no 50-50 kind of thing. It's a bit awkward. So when we take into account anything that's completely modelled with loads and loads of polys, we can't sort of gradually deform it over time. So that's why the poly stuff has actually been really, really beneficial for us. It means that we're not sort of breaking everything. It doesn't just get oddly skewed in one place and it's perfectly solid in another. It goes really weird. But yeah, pretty much. Rigid body, transform the object, keeps the proportions. It's just weird. Another thing is like texture's blurry. Unfortunately, that's kind of a limitation for now. It would be great to have higher like texture counts and everything, but again, we have to sort of take into account people with lower spec computers. What animation am I most proud of? I really don't know, actually. There's been quite a few, because I've been here for nearly 6 years. There's a lot of stuff that I just forget. Yeah, I can only, when someone asks like that, I can only really think of the stuff that I've been doing in the last year. So, yeah, well, let's just say in the last year, just so I'm not sitting here like going, because that's boring as hell. So I pretty much, I don't know if many of you people knew, I was on Ninja when Ninja was first formed, but as the teams changed structure, I've come on to the Watch. So from the Watch, I've been working on, I think I was just briefly on the 6th Age World event with Tusker. Then after that, it was straight onto Raids. After that, it was the Gobi Quest and Halloween, and then we've got Tutorial Island, and then we've got God Wars. So I think out of all of that, I am pretty happy with how a lot of, I think Yakimaru is pretty good, because one thing, it's quite nice the fact that it's a lot more skill-based stuff, which is quite interesting. So that all came into account with trying to work out how to go about doing a lot of the different mechanics. It was quite interesting. I thought that was quite decent. I'd say, yeah, I'm probably proud of. Sorry, that's a really long answer. Yeah, yeah, I'm proud of Raids. So there's going to be, it will look really different. All of God Wars in NXT, because, like I say, it's a render. It's going to have a really good draw distance. I mean, I'm looking over at Mod Chili, who I sit next to. I'm looking over at his desk, and some of the stuff's like, Christ, like this. It really does sell when you can see way off into the distance. We've done a lot of playing around with things, just see how far we can get, and you get this really cool parallax. But yeah, that kind of stuff is going to look awesome when NXT comes around. But let's have a quick peek at the tools. Yeah, the particle thing about, sorry, I'll just read that out. Hypothetically possible to make an item with player chosen particle effects. The problem with that is particles aren't sort of dictated by any direct HSL at the moment. There might be a way of being able to sort of key it in the future, but for now we pretty much go, the particles have got a sort of a range, so we pick 2 range colours and then a target range. That's quite a lot of data to sort of then feed back for the players to control. It's not as easy as like recolor values or anything. So can't do it yet, maybe in the future, but again, I can't like promise anything because that's way out of my hands. It would be really cool because I saw a lot of people wanted that with skill capes and stuff, but fortunately we sort of stuck, because if that was the case, I'd have to make a different particle emitter for each possible colour combination, and that's just going to take a long time, and I imagine it's going to take up a lot of processor power. So let's just, I'll continue this, I'll keep on speaking as I go along. So yeah, what was I doing here? Oh yeah, so I want pretty much to get her to take off. Again, I'm going to push the wings down. Again, I want to have a little bit of overlap. So as the wings go down, I want to sort of do that and then push down. So with this, let's just... So as she's pushing up, I'm going to extend the legs out just so she pushes straight up. Just so you get a nice... sort of contrast between the sort of the bent leg and then it's sort of pushing you up, because this is, although she's got wings, they're not like proper wings, they're quite flexible, quite fluid. You'll see more when you're actually fighting her. So a lot of the energy needs to come straight back from the legs. So I'm just going to stretch these out, turn that off. When we were still, I don't know when the names came up. I think it was maybe a week ago, or if it was, I don't know. So I just call them like, I've just been calling them either Zamorakian General or the twins, pretty much. That just seems to make a lot of sense. Everyone knows what they're talking about. If I said, was it Nimora? If I got that wrong, I can't remember, to be honest. If I said that, say for example, if I said that to my line manager, he would go, who? Because you know, sometimes the names, it's like the Tazar ones. No, I'm just not going to learn those names. They're really, really complicated. It's just not worth it. So yeah, they usually come under code names, as in, so yeah, demons were demons or twins or generals. The bear is bear or man bear pig or something like that, just because it's like, yeah. And then so they all have their own little code names, but it's usually just for me. For the twins, what I have to do is, what I can do, and it saves an awful lot of time, is I can pretty much select all of these controls and then copy them. And then what I can do is, let me just make a new frame. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to paste all of this. But what I can do is I can swap all the left with the right. So yeah, left goes onto the right arm. And then if I do that, it's going to go like that. So I'll just have to mirror it. And the tool sort of it can work out which axis I'm sort of working out, like how to rotate. This kind of works about 99% of the time. There's one animation what I've had to do which did not work, so I had to sort of make it twice. It was a bit of a pain. Yeah, anything with an element effect is most difficult to animate. Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's like pretty much we've had a lot of back and forth with concept artists where I'm just saying, dude, I can't do that. I think the Yakimaru, it was really, really watery and it looked really good in the concept, but I was like, I can't do that, really can't. It's very awkward. So we've managed to make it a little bit more jelly-like, you know, like in Ocarina of Time, you've got that sort of water temple thing. I was like, if you make it closer to that than direct water, it makes it much better. And then, yeah, so I've managed to do a lot of particles and stuff, try and make it feel as watery as possible, but not so much as in, if you punch that, your arm will go straight through, it'll be splashes everywhere. It wouldn't look nice. It's notoriously hard to make water look good in game. So when you see the NXT water, you'll be pretty impressed because that stuff looks good. We've not got an unlimited amount of polys. Technically you do, but sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'll just go to this other question from Umbreon. Yeah, the examples of something we didn't think would work, be possible. It was possible. Yeah, again, Yakimaru was something that we were quite surprised about how it works, just because I was like, the other thing that is linked to this project, literally to these guys, they've got the wings. I don't want to ruin too much of it because I was quite happy with it, but the way the wings sort of grow and sort of mutate when we sort of put that out, because every 2 weeks we sort of show off all our sprint review stuff and people are like, oh, that's really cool. How the hell did you do that with our tools? So yeah, every time like we try and do something that manages to even like take the devs off guard, and they're just like, oh, actually that's really cool. I didn't even think you could do that. So yeah, there's quite a few things. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say before that. Sorry, it'll come back to me. Oh yeah, that was it. Unlimited amount of polygons. Technically that are, but I think the limit is, don't quote me on this, but I think it's 10,000 per character. But it's not necessarily, oh, we can make a 10,000 poly character, all of them be 10,000. It's a lot more restrictive. You have to take into account, one, how many of these things are going to be on screen. So a boss is a little bit more, because there's only going to be one. However, you can't just make, you know, like a 3,000 poly sword because it's so small on screen. It's just going to be wasteful. And like pretty much a lot of this comes down to optimization. You really can't, you can't just go too willy-nilly on this. I mean, it's not really my area, but I talk quite closely with, like, say, Mod Chambers and Mod Chili. They sort of, they're very, very specific about this. I mean, we have our own limitations in the actual animator. For example, I'm going to bring over one of my other little windows. Oh no, it's here. Right, so this is my, like, it's pretty much my list of controls. So all of these is featured on here, but it's not just, oh, then, you know, one is one. Each one has the origin, which pretty much points exactly where it is on the model, and then it's got a rotate, and then sometimes I'll add, so for example on the wings, I've wanted to add a lot of flexibility. So it's got the origin of where it sort of rotates from, it's got the rotate, it's got a scale which can go in all three axes, and then it's got a translate as well. So all of that builds up, and the limit is 400. So it's kind of, if you, for example, you put all of those controls on each one, you only have 100 models, not 100 models, 100 transforms to sort of play with. So it can be quite restrictive. we've managed to hit that deadline, that limit, and then go over, and then have to take it back, and then go over, and then we've managed to get the limit sort of raised somewhat, and then we sort of hit that limit again. So it's this constant struggle. It's quite difficult. Can you have two separate objects not connected at all in one animation? Yes, you can. I can't show an example here, but there are other things. What we can do, we can sort of set all of this chain up to move one thing, and then we have an extra control that only affects one other thing. So some examples of that will be the human, for example. We've got a special sort of control in there which only affects an object but nothing else. We use that quite a lot for, say you want to throw something up in the air. If you rotate the arm, then that will suddenly go, so it's on its own. So yeah, there are ways around it. There's some really hacky ways, there's some a bit more legitimate ways. So you know, there's a lot of restrictions, but like I said, I've been here for like near 6 years, so we've managed to like work our way around. If someone doesn't know, then we like say, oh, try this, and vice versa. It's like I'll say, if I have no idea, someone goes, oh, well, why don't you try this? So because there's only 5 animators on our team, but we've all been here a long, long time. So everyone sort of feeds knowledge from everyone else, and it's surprising how much you're sort of thinking, I didn't know this, even after all this time, because just little bits get added, and oh, that's a cool technique, and then you just share it around with the team. Someone asked me how long I've been learning all of this kind of stuff. I went to uni for 3 years, then I worked at some other studios, and then I got the job here, and so it's been quite a while, but at the same time it doesn't just start and end with that. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, for one thing, I went back home and I dug through my room and I found this stupid bit of paper that I did when I was 5 years old, and it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be an animator. So yeah, and yay, good work, 5-year-old me, I did it. But yeah, so it's a long process. It takes a lot of work. Again, I'm nowhere near anywhere like through being an expert in this field. There's always so many people who, you know, you proper aspire to be, and they feel exactly the same way. It's just a constant learning cycle. One thing I saw was someone asked me if I use reference footage, and yeah, I do. We have one thing, YouTube is a really, really valuable resource. You can find so much stuff. So is my mic gone weird? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so YouTube is a really good fountain of knowledge, pretty much, because we used a lot of reference for combat, for example, or anything fighting, anything that's somewhat awkward to do. I mean, that's not to say we only do, we don't just watch YouTube videos. We also have a room upstairs which is just mirrors wall to wall. That's really useful, so we just go in there, act it out, just make a prat of yourself. Just because it's got blinds on the windows, so you just roll them down and then just go, oh. That's fun, but it's also really valuable. You need to, if you were to do a lot of this stuff, because when I'm at my desk, I still just stand up and just, it must look really bizarre because sometimes I'm just like, and it's like, what the hell am I doing? But I'm just trying to work out where the weight is coming from. So for example, if I want to throw a punch, it's not just, because there's no weight or momentum coming from there. So you proper push back, and then you feel your shoulder come forward, and then a lot of the force comes from that. It's not just your shoulder, then it comes from your hips. I could talk about that all day, but I won't, because I'll be here all night. But there's a lot of stuff that you just feel just by acting out animes yourself. So yeah, there's so many different ways. So yeah, doing it yourself, perfect. YouTube, great. There are other tools and websites. Rhino House is a really good one. It's a subscription-based thing where you'll go in. It's got thousands of front and side views of different. It's got humans. It's got animals, which is perfect for when we were saying doing the bear. It's like you can't really get on all fours. One, it's just wrong. So yeah, that's really helpful just to sort of see the gait, like which order the feet move in and like where the weight sort of shifts about. Yeah, so there's a lot of different places where you're getting ideas from, and it's funny because we're in a. If you're in like a fantasy world, which we are, there are no demons. However, you can sort of make hybrids of different things. So it's human, so you can do a lot of the stuff, but at the same time, there's birds, which has been really helpful. For the vampires, we did a lot of bats, obviously, but it's not just bats because the anatomy is completely different. So you look into all matter of things, anything that sort of flies, you can get a lot of small details from like the strangest places. I'm trying to think where we got the stuff from gobies. I think that was penguins or something. But yeah, it's like bizarre because you would never know. Hang on. So yeah, let's just pick another question. That website's Rhino House. I don't know how much it is per month, but yeah. I saw a good one, but I've forgotten one. Sorry, the questions are coming way at me. Oh, first project. My first project was chickens. No, actually, yeah, pretty much. I think there was one other like little test thing that I did was, I think it was the highwayman or something. He was walking along. But yeah, one notable thing I can remember is doing the chickens. But the weird thing is that I did it and then they didn't go into game, so I sort of like squeezed them in. Yeah, I'm not going to show Grivorovich, just because maybe in the future that'd be great, but it's mainly because it's sort of done. I don't want to sort of go back into it and everything. It's a bit of a minefield, like looking through stuff. My TAP project is it's more animation based stuff rather than direct RuneScape things, so it's probably not that helpful to know what I'm doing. But yeah, I know everyone's going to call him Greg. That's what we did. I think the the summary on one of our sort of documents is Greg was a nice guy, then he became evil. that was it. Yeah, Chickens Engineering in 2010. Yeah, it could have been that, but I think I did it earlier than that. I can't remember now. I had no idea. So I'll keep on. I'll try and keep doing some of this stuff, but there's a lot of good questions coming up, so I'm naturally like I want to answer those. We do some of the agility stuff. It's quite difficult, just because it's a lot of. Greg was a dick. Yes. So I don't create the God Monster myself. Pretty much there's a whole process. First of all, the designers say what kind of thing they want to go for. They throw out a lot of mood boards and different designs again. Oh, we really want this kind of thing to be implemented. Yeah, so after that and during that and before that, it sort of goes to the concept artists, who are really talented bunch. They pretty much take all of that, all of the designs, all of the ideas that the designers have said and say, okay, how about this? Then we can kind of go, yeah, that's awesome, because it normally is like awesome. There's like changes that they might do, and then pretty much once it's signed off and all given the go ahead, then it goes over to the modelers. What they do, because me and Mod Chambers have got a we've kind of got a bit of a system now where he'll model everything, and then he'll sort of set up the UVs ready to be textured, but it'll give me the monster, and then I'll rig it up using that, like this tool. And then while I'm doing that, it means that he can just work on the texture, and then one day I'll just open this up and go, oh cool, it's texture now, awesome, cheers. So yeah, there's a whole process. I'm pretty much not exactly the last in line. That's obviously QA, but well, they sort of in all over the place, so that they pretty much get in right from the start right to the very end. But in terms of the art side of things, it's kind of last in the chain. Gobbles 2, sorry, I can't answer. I think that God Wars is pretty much aimed at everybody, so you can group it, you can solo it, I think. I don't want to say too much, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yeah, Fragility course, that wasn't me, that was Mod Hing. Yeah, that was awkward. He did a really, really good job with that. He just sits there, headphones on, just works away, and yeah, he's managed to do a really good job because they're so colossal, it's so nice in the body mechanics, and bear in mind we have no like nice shortcuts like pin this hand here and now move everything. No, once you do that, then everything moves up. So yeah, it's kind of everyone's sort of really, really good at what they do. So, but yeah, I can't take the credit for that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to pass that. I'll pass the compliments on because I'm sure he'll like that. God, I can't believe it's 10-2 already. So yeah, let's just go through this. Ooh, I've done something weird. I've done something really stupid. The most longest, most annoying animation. Ooh, I know this one. This wasn't just that I had to work on. You might remember the max cape, where it pretty much incorporates every single skill. That was a real beast to do because we all had to come in at the weekend. So pretty much, yeah, that got dropped on us, and we were like, oh. Yeah, we really have to get this done, and we really need to make it look cool. Thankfully, we managed to set up a system so we split it up into loads of different pieces. You can kind of see you've got the mining and the woodcutting and all of that. It all kind of splits up quite nice. Yeah, that was quite intense. It was really, really awkward, but you know, it worked out pretty nice. I think everyone did a really good job on that, and there was quite a few people on that. Yeah, I need to save my work, don't I? Thank you. Yeah, I didn't work on Araxor either, I'm afraid. I did some stuff. I don't know if any of you guys went to RuneFest, but we had the cool VR experience, and that was a weird process of trying to get it out of Jagged into Maya, and then try and fix like little bits just so it kind of worked. Yeah, I don't know if there's any sort of videos of that, but that turned out really well, like the whole VR experience. The animation for the Maxcape, I can't name everyone because there was quite a few people on that. This was way back in the day. Oh, I've done something really stupid. Oh no, I remember what I did, didn't I? I just realised I mirrored that frame and then didn't delete it. That was just an example. I don't want that frame. Way we do shadows, yeah, I really hope it's going to be dynamic. I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Oh, cool. Glad you like the VR. Yeah, I think because well, you can kind of see now. It's this really horrible, like shadow it's kind of generated from the sort of the limits of where the model is, just to make this really ugly sort of circle. But soon it should just be actual casted shadow, so we won't have to deal with this anymore. So yeah, I already saved it, but I will do it again. Right, so as this goes up, one other thing I was just going to do actually, because before I get too far, I need to raise this up a lot. I didn't do the Dungeoneering bosses. I think that was Mob Biscuits did some of them, and some other people who are sadly no longer with us. Not make it sound morbid, they just went elsewhere. Need smoke pouring out the eyes. That'd be weird, maybe. I'll do laser eyes, that could work. Yeah, a lot of the Avanti stuff, that was a real challenge to do. Yeah, that was for the God War. We sort of reworked a lot of the anims. Yeah, that was a real pain because there's something that's, I think I mentioned it like way back right at the start of the stream. We haven't got like blending between one anim and another. So as you sort of go up and you sort of animate the wing sort of flaps, and that's like a complete cycle, but it doesn't necessarily it doesn't sync up with another anim. So one problem would be if you sort of do that and then suddenly they snap. That was a real pain to fix. One thing that I managed to get working really, really nicely was in the Tutorial Island quest, because you got the crabs, and what they do, they sort of walk sideways, but when they stop, they sort of turn, and I've managed to blend that quite nicely. So if you pay attention to that, there's no snapping in that whatsoever. But again, it gets difficult because they're fine because they were just NPCs that walk around and stop. These are combat ones, so there's so many more variables like to take into consideration. We can never get it perfect, but yeah, Avantis were a pain. Eyeball movement is possible, and we've been doing it a couple of times. If you zoom in into the gobies, they actually do walk, they do move around. If I go into her eyes, yeah, let's just play around with this for a second. These have actually got controls. If I can select the right ones, it's so minor though, it's kind of, it's hardly worth it. But yeah, we do have some movement. If I do that, then she can go nice and wall-eyed. But yeah, we can kind of do that sometimes. We usually kind of try and do that just to emphasize certain bits. It's the same with the blink. So we have some blink controls on here. So I can just close these, and I'll close the lower eyelids. But I don't like to use those just whenever. It's usually to sort of emphasize the movement. So if she was to turn, then I'd have a blink, and then I'd sort of turn as it's blinking, just to kind of like put a real punch into that. So they're kind of, they're there, but I'm not using them too much at the moment. That mostly comes right at the end, because once I've got the whole animation done, I'll kind of go over it again and then just think, there's certain little bits, like for example, you can see all this hair. I've tried to keep the hair kind of working throughout the whole thing, so it sort of moves a little bit. But what I'll do right at the end of this is, yeah, I'll sort of go in and then I'll add a little bit of overlap, because I want these to be kind of nice and fluid, and it's really not that feasible to sort of do it every single time. So as I've broken it down more, and then I'll kind of make a sort of move, and then with that movement then I'll get the secondary motion where it sort of trails and then overlaps. So yeah, but it's usually because we do a lot of sort of different passes over all of this. Some people work differently, so some people can literally do it all in one go, but I like to sort of do the general chunks like I've done here. So I've got my main keys, and then I'll break it down more and more. Why doesn't the wolf chat blink its eyes? That is a big problem, because the chat head, it's a very peculiar system. it pretty much, all chat heads use pretty much the same anims. So it's a bit like funky. But yeah, I think the eyelids were sort of getting a bit, they were being a bit of a problem. So we ended up sort of having to remove the eyelid controls for those chat heads. We don't necessarily do all the chat head animations because they're sort of pre-existing. So we sort of just let the existing sort of stuff work. It's like a big catch-all kind of thing. But chat heads can be a little bit funny. I mean, the modelers will happily say it's a pain because you've got to make one character and then you've pretty much got to slice the head off and then make it big, make it a little bit more detailed. So it can be a bit of a pain. Yeah, I'll play what I've got. I've just realised I've done very little over this hour, but it's been good, like sort of just chatting, sort of explaining what we do. So you can kind of see as sort of a way. I think this has gone really bizarre now because I raised it up. So what I will probably do quickly, what I can do, when I said I select two frames and I can sort of create an in-between, what I can do is then take that new one, take the existing one, and then add another one, delete that second one. And what it will do, it will sort of favour a little bit. So it kind of, so now this new keyframe here is sort of more on the side of her being right up in the air, and what we can use that quite a lot. Whoops. Oh no! No, it's okay. The thing fell on the floor. Yeah, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say now. Yeah, the way we work is everything is pretty much linear. So when I created a new frame, I want it to sort of stay close to the end. So then you get this sort of nice easing in. So when I've got one frame there, and then I'll sort of make it slow, and that's pretty much just our way of doing it. No, it wasn't the water, thank God. No, I don't think I'll be invited back if I did that. Yeah, so it's like I said, it's a bit like, I'll probably, I really enjoy staying, but I'm probably going to give it another 10 minutes and then I might have to like jet off. But if you do enjoy this and you're happy for me to do this again, just tell me. Like, I'm on Twitter, everyone else is on Twitter, everyone else is on the forums and Reddit. So yeah, if you like it, say that it's great. If you don't like it, then sorry. You know, sorry I've wasted an hour, but I think it's going all right. There's a lot of good questions. Fortunately, I can't answer them all, but I really want to because there's some really good stuff coming up. Yeah. Cheers. I'll make sure that I do more of these because it seems to have gone down well. It's just a shame that I've not done. I mean, I had this big plan. I was like, yeah, I'd love to sort of have this done. I'm glad that I had half an animation sort of ready. Otherwise, you'd have just seen like this one pose, and I'd have just been doing this like for hours. But yeah, no, I'm really glad that it's gone well because I won't lie, I was pretty nervous because like I don't talk a great deal. My face is very angry, so you know it's a bit off-putting. But yeah, I'll definitely do some more. Just trying to think of it rather than. I can continue doing this a little bit more. I'll continue doing this kind of little settle. The reason some of this is blurry or doesn't look great is this is just the tool. It's not the client. The client obviously gives it a lot nicer. NXT, it will add some nice anti-aliasing onto here because it's still somewhat jaggy. It's there's no nice lighting. It's proper bog standard, but that's not what it's for. This is purely for animation, and if we added the lovely like lighting effects, we can't get the whole thing working. because it needs to run at 50 frames per second. You can kind of see here. If this had all of the extra stuff going on, it would really chug, and then it pretty much makes the job unworkable. So that's pretty much why. So sorry, it looks a bit shonky here, but that's purely the reasons why. We just can't sort of slow down the tools. So I'll just continue to do a little bit more. Yeah, Greg's face is a mask. I think that's what I quite like about it. It's somewhat creepy. It's not. I was thinking when because often when they give us the concept art and the models, I sort of obviously I look into all of this and I don't just animate it straight up. I don't have any great examples at the moment of this, but I was doing some like sketches for the actual animation, because I'll see the model and go, okay, that's cool, I've got some great ideas. I pretty much talk about my intentions of how I'm going to do this, the reasons why. So for example, with Greg, there was definite things I wanted to do after seeing the concept art. I was like, well, I definitely want to sort of make him sort of weird, not like Slender Man, but there's that kind of weird thing about him where he's just very long and somewhat gangly and a bit creepy. And because the face is just a mask, it kind of works really well because there's no real thought process going on. There is a thought process, but you can't see it, and I think that's what makes it much more unnerving. So I'm just going to drink. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of thought beyond just here's the model, now do it. There's a lot of different things that we have to go on. So yeah, let's just. What I might do with this is I want to have a nice bit of overshoot, so when she sort of flaps up, it's weird just sort of like, you know, elevate a bit. It's a bit boring, but with most things you want to have, there's like kind of, it almost pretty much boils down to the exaggeration. One thing, you really want the anticipation, hence why instead of her just going up, you have like this like the inverse motion, so she's going down and then she sort of pushes up, and then what I want to do here is I want to maybe just overlap it, so she sort of overshoots going up, so as it goes up, and then sort of goes down maybe a little bit more, then to settle. It's obviously not looking great at the moment, but I think it's because I changed the height. But yeah, you can kind of see in this little piece here, there's a big kink there, so I kind of need to play around with this little piece. And then I can just break this down a little bit more. Just sort of soften it so it's not a direct sort of line. It works. And then probably with this one, I'm going to do the thing where I sort of favour it a bit more to this side. Just go in, put it down to 5 and 5. Yeah, the ed I think stands for editor. I don't know. It was like that when I got here, but there are reasons. Some of the reasons are strange. There was like the cutscene editor tool. It's called, was it Parabadraggle, that nobody could pronounce, and I think we said, okay, we need to what bugs are in this game in the tool. I was like, well, first of all, call it the cutscene editor. Because Parabadraggle, nobody could understand it, and everyone kept on spelling it wrong, and it just makes no sense. So yeah, there are some odd reasons. Yeah, I did the boss pets. That was a while ago now. That was quite that was when Ryan was here, and he pretty much said, "Can we do boss pets?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess it's like, they're purely just like overrides." I was like, "Not overrides, sorry. They're just literal pets that follow you." And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. I can do that." And at that point, there were 26, and that was a long job. And bear in mind, at that point, I was on Ninja, so there was like that was my sort of job. But then I think it was like 2 weeks before they came out, there was a whole piece about these should be like overrides for familiars. It's like, that sounds great. However, there's not any time in 2 weeks to do 26 anims, to do not even 26 anims, it's 26 times 3. So it's kind of one of those things that I really like to, but time is just not on my side. Because like, as you can kind of see, as soon as I left Ninja, I've been doing projects back to back. Some have overlapped. It's really awkward. So at some point, I'm not saying, I'll say the old soon TM, at some point it would be nice to sort of look into them and just see how much I can get done, because I could try and take the old anims and put them onto the smaller ones, but the problem is the scale is completely off, and especially the translate does not translate well. So if you say, okay, this is going up like 2 clicks, then when you've got a tiny model, 2 clicks, it's like woo, and then it's sort of going weird. And if there's any other movement, like if there's any translates in the legs, they're literally stretching off, which is why it's not as easy just to say, okay, I'm going to take this anim, put it over onto this one. It could work in theory for like maybe 20% of them, but it's like the timing it's a bit of a pain. The other thing is because they're so much smaller, the reach is a lot different. So if it's sort of punching, and I'm thinking, say, let's just sorry, if I use like what's his name, Grador for example, it's got a little punch like that, and then you put that one down, and it's like I don't know, it goes a little bit funky. It doesn't kind of reach, or sometimes the feet go straight through the floor. And so like, this is it's a big fix rather than that. So then I sort of, I have to sort of tweak or make a new one. It depends on which one is going to be more helpful. Yeah, I can. Tell you what, because I've made like no progress on this one, you can kind of see what's going on. Wee flies up, and then she's going to sort of go, and then like fire out loads of stuff from her hands and her wings. Because what I want to do, I can't say what it does, because that's kind of content heavy, and I really don't want to sort of give people the upper hand on this. So yeah, it kind of goes up all of these sort of spines, because this is like, all of these sort of pieces are going to be like little projectiles that shoot off. You don't want to know how you spell Brabber Jaguar, it's not worth it. Right, so I'm just going to, I saved it, and now, yeah, because it's coming up to 7:15 here, I'm just going to show you one of the animations that I've already done. So I need to, don't look at everything that I've got on my screen, hang on. Oh, I know what I can do. Ha!
Awesome wallpaper.
Cheers. Yeah, this is one of my wallpapers that I came up with. So, Ollie said, have we got a logo? I was like, this, and then he thought that I was buggering about. Just fine. Right, I'm just going to open up. Okay, right. Sorry, I can't show you certain bits because it might. No, there we go. Right. So I'm just going to close my rain death. So for the melee, bow, punch with the, that's kind of working okay. So yeah, she's kind of punching forward and then the wing sort of comes out. Like we're saying, they're not wings as such. We want to make them do some cool tentacly stuff. There was a lot of Death Note stuff that Ollie put up for this. So yeah, naturally they've got the cool like tentacly things going out. So yeah, pow. And then this should add the extra reach. So because she's like that, it's gonna be kind of small. But yeah, there's a nice little teaser for you. Yeah, I think that's a really nice place to end this on. Naturally, I hope you all enjoyed the stream. It's, yeah, my first, well, it's all of R3's first art stream. Yeah, you might, because we knew that there was a lot of good things coming from Mod Ghosts art ones, and we just wanted to do another. I think it went all right. I didn't stumble too many times, I hope, because I am pretty quiet. You might see me on the sofa. I don't say that much, but now I'm quite thirsty now because this is an awful lot of time I've spent talking non-stop. Yeah, so great. If you liked it, spread the word. Tell everyone how handsome and amazing I am, and maybe I'll come on to the stream more. Yeah, I mean, like I said, as soon as God Wars is done, we're straight on another project. So I will probably have much more stuff to show. Again, it's kind of, we had to delay this one a little bit to make sure that we had enough, like we weren't just instantly going to spoil this, because imagine if I did this like a month ago, got bam, there you go, Zamorak Demons, and be like, what? This is like just ruined everything. So we've got to try and keep it. But if I ever have a project that I'm going to work on that's not too spoilerific, then I'll go straight ahead. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. It's like 20 past, so I'll just say, yeah, follow us on Twitter, StuO, and yeah, thanks, guys.